Now we're going to talk about Pete Hegseth. They're stepping up the attacks on Trump's nominees for cabinet positions. And I say that laughing because they have no idea the beast that they have awakened. Pete Hegseth is a disruptor. And because he's a disruptor and threatens to disrupt the military industrial complex itself, Pete has come under horrendous attack. And not attack for the policies that he wants to implement at the Department of Defense, not attack for his political positions, but character assassinations and reputation smears, personal attacks from anonymous sources. You'll remember a couple of days ago, the New York Times published an email sent to Pete Hegseth by his mother, Penelope. This was years ago during a nasty divorce that Pete was going through. His mother sent him an email telling him to stop sleeping around. She said, "You're being nasty to women, and I'm not proud of that kind of behavior in my son." How a personal email like this got in the hands of the New York Times, maybe that's the question we should be asking. From my perspective, I don't agree with Pete sleeping around. I think a lot of people probably don't. Will that impact his ability to do his job at Department of Defense? Absolutely not. We'll get to that in a second. Pete's mom went on Fox and Friends this morning to talk about that email, this line of attack the left has gripped a hold of. And this is what she said. Take a listen.
What's one thing about Pete people don't realize?
That he's got a big heart, that he's very smart.
Yeah.
He is the most faithful patriot of this country. He loves his country, He's fought and almost died for his country. He's a good dad. He's an amazing son and father. And that's the Pete I want people to know.
The nomination of Pete Hegseth is critically important to our country, critically important. That entire interview with Penelope Hegseth on Fox was 15 minutes long. It is well worth the watch of the entire interview. Penelope Hegseth is furious with the media for their double standards and their lack of context, as she should be. Imagine, for example, if we held this standard to senators in the United States Congress. Imagine if we said, well, Senator, whoever, Republican, Democrat, you're not allowed to vote if you have ever engaged in promiscuous sexual activity. How many senators do you think would step up to cast their vote? How many would pass that test? Something tells me not too many of them would. The newest line of attack against Pete Hegseth is that he would come to work at Fox drunk. These are such elementary character assassination. NBC reported this, and they based this accusation on 10 anonymous sources, people who refused to go on the record, to assassinate Pete's character. Once NBC released this hit piece on Pete Hegseth, Will Cain, Pete Hegseth's former co-host on Fox and Friends, in the space of one day, collected 19, and that's just the last time I looked. There might be more since the hour that I counted. Will Cain has 19 of Pete Hegseth's former coworkers on the record denying this allegation that Pete Hegseth was somehow a drunk. Again, might I suggest that we apply these standards, the promiscuity standard and the alcohol standard, to the United States Congress first? If you, as a senator, have ever used, for example, the fund in Congress to pay off accusers of sexual misconduct, if you've ever engaged in sexual misconduct, promiscuous sex, if you've ever had a drink in the United States Capitol, if you've ever been drunk, even just a little tipsy buzzed, then may I ask you to step aside for this nomination. We can accept these rules, we can accept these terms, but the first people who will be subject to these brand new standards are going to be those who vote in favor or not of the confirmation of President Trump's nominees. Senator Lindsey Graham told the media he thinks these accusations against Pete Hegseth look pretty bad. This is what he said.
Some of these articles are very disturbing. He, obviously has a chance to defend himself here, but, some of this stuff is going to be difficult. Time will tell. I like Pete. I've known him for a very, very long time.
Oh, it'll be difficult. Ask yourself this. Do you think Lindsey Graham is actually disturbed by these allegations? Or is Lindsey Graham disturbed by the fact that Pete Hegseth thinks that we should end the wars that Lindsey Graham profits off of, that Lindsey Graham likes? Lindsey Graham never met a war that he didn't like. And so there's been another sort of psychological attack that's been thrown at Pete Hegseth too. There's been a report that President Trump is considering dropping Pete Hegseth and replacing him with Ron DeSantis instead. But you know what? Sean Davis of The Federalist spoke with sources close to the Trump transition team and said this story is absolute nonsense. In fact, there's a report, call it a rumor if you want, that these kind of stories are being planted by rhino senators. Rhino senators like Joni Ernst, for example, who don't like Pete Hegseth because they're neocons. Senators like Joni Ernst, who herself wants to be the Secretary of Defense. Now, Pete Hegseth said he talked to President Trump this morning, and Trump said to keep fighting, that you have to be tough as blank to defeat these people, but Trump believes that Hegseth is the man to do it. And I want to say this. I have a message today for the despicable, lying sycophants who are throwing these fake hatchets at Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel too. You have no idea the sleeping giant that you have awakened when you weaponized government to target us and profited from spilling the blood of our beloved brothers and sons in your forever wars. If you think that we're going to roll over, just let you torpedo Trump's nominees with unsubstantiated, anonymous fake news and slimy character assassinations, you're utterly delusional. We were born for this fight. This is the core reason we elected Trump, to send disruptors like Hegseth, like Patel, into the swamp, to drain it. Right now, you're trembling with fear that Hegseth and Patel will wrestle power from your hands. And that's exactly right. That's exactly what's going to happen. The moment the Senate confirms Hegseth and Patel, your reign of abuse is over. You know it, and we know it. We also know that these evil attacks on Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel are coming not just from radical leftists, but from slimy uniparty swamp creatures in the Republican Senate who've sold their souls for war profit and domestic power. We, the people, abhor you. And more importantly, we know your names. You have betrayed us once too many times, and you will be primaried into oblivion. The most profound words President Trump has ever spoken came just seconds after a would-be assassin fired a bullet that narrowly missed penetrating his brain. The president said to us, the American people, fight, fight, fight. Make no mistake, we will fight for these appointments. For Pete Hegseth, for Kash Patel, for Tulsi Gabbard, for Jay Bhattacharya, for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., for Tom Homan. You have vastly underestimated the sleeping giant that you have awakened. We are roaring lions. We will be abused no more. For love of truth, for love of humanity, for love of our country, I encourage the United States Senate to confirm Pete Hegseth. But what's the mood of the United States Senate? Well, we got a peek into the Capitol. What's the Senate think of these false allegations coming from the uniparty through the media? Take a look at this.
And, or for that matter, I don't want him to admit the things he didn't do if he truly didn't do them either. But the allegations are very, very serious. They can't be trivialized. And I just want to know that he's redeemed, and going forward, he's going to be better.
It's a finger in the wind. What's your sense of the mood of the conference with this nomination?
I think there's the mood of the conference, and then there's the mood of the Trump transition team itself. So we'll see what kind of messages and signals we hear throughout the course of the day.
Stop it right there. We'll see what kind of signals and messages we hear throughout the course of the entire day. Do you know what that means, my friends? It means that your voice makes a difference. It means that your voice matters. It means that the louder we speak, the stronger we speak, the more that we politely but firmly demand that our representatives in the United States Senate vote to confirm these nominees of President Trump's, the more likely they are to do so. If President Trump backs down on Pete Hegseth, and I don't think he will, it's not just a worse cabinet. It's a hit on the entire agenda. Conversely, if President Trump fights, and I think he will, this is not just a win against the media. This is not just a win for this particular nominee. This is a win for the entire America First agenda. It's also, if we want to speak in practical strategic terms here, it's a very effective tool to root out the corruption that exists within our own party. Take, for example, this scenario. If Pete Hegseth sits before the United States Senate in a confirmation hearing because President Trump had the iron will to weather Pete through these attacks, if Pete Hegseth sits before the United States Senate and is somehow torpedoed by the rhinos, then they are forced in public to expose their corruption to you and to me, which gives us the opportunity, the fire in our belly, if you will, to primary them. We are here to fight for these nominees. Tell your senator. If you're on your laptop, pull up your email right now. If you're on your cell phone, pull up X right now. Tag your senator, tag your nominee, tag your president, and tell them we're here to fight.
So it's been an all-out assault since Trump named you.
No doubt.
I mean, from alleged rape allegations to allegations about your marriage to financial mismanagement allegations at your companies that you ran, your foundations, I should say. How's it going with Trump right now? Is he so far standing by you, and have you spoken to him?
I spoke to him this morning, Megan. I mean, he's amazing. He's a fighter. He's been through this himself, and he told me the last thing he said to me, well, two things he said to me when I left his office when he chose me was, well, besides what he said about being a warfighter, we can get into that, was you're going to need to be tough as shit. You're going to need to be tough as shit. But he paused again as I was walking away and said, but you're the man for this moment. I chose you because you're the guy that's going to put the warfighters first. We haven't had that. We need a guy that's kicked down doors and understands the consequences of war and why us deterring war, fighting it, and winning it is important. I mean, he gets it. And we can get into the policy of all of that. But ultimately, he reiterated the same thing this morning. Hey, Pete, I got your back. It's a fight. They're coming after you. Get after it. I think he'll be delighted that we're talking today. Yeah. And we're going to do more talking because for so long what was said about me, what has been said about me, it was so ridiculous and all anonymous that we didn't want to give it oxygen. You don't want to respond to things that don't merit response. And so we haven't, but sitting here with you and going forward, the media is driving with this ridiculous narrative. It's our time to stand up and tell the truth and our side. And he knows that. And so he supports me. I won't betray what we talked about specifically, but he said, you go out and meet those senators and I've got your back. It means a lot to me. It tells you who that guy is.
So you are meeting with them. Any open wobbliness there? How do you like your chances right now?
I mean, Donald Trump won overwhelmingly, 76 million votes. He's got 53 senators, all of which understand what the American people voted for. They voted for the change that Donald Trump is going to bring. And they knew in the picks that he's made, he's bringing in change agents. If you wanted another general or another admiral or an executive or a CEO or a politician or a lawyer to run the Defense Department, we tried that before. He said, I want a warfighter. I want lethality, lethality, lethality. I want readiness, accountability, standards, warfighting. Pete, that's you, that's me, clean house of the woke crap. All that stuff, all the climate stuff and the CRT and the DEI and the genderism and get rid of it. Let's bring the Pentagon back to the people, the people's Pentagon for warfighters. And that's the message he gave to me that I've projected back to senators, and it resonates. When I get a chance to sit down, especially with these senators from the Senate Armed Services Committee, that's the committee I'm talking to, they care about the military a lot. They've run for office, spent their lives trying to invest in it. So the advise and consent process is a real thing. Like I'm hearing from these men and women, these senators who have great ideas, want to make sure that when I'm confirmed, we're able to implement them at the Defense Department.
They're worried about the military and the country and not necessarily your love life.
No.
Or your mom.
Or my mom. who did a fantastic job on Fox and
We're
Friends
going to
this
show
morning.
some of it.
If we all went back 7 years, we would see that maybe we were not the people we are today. And I'm sure many of you across the country understand how difficult divorce is on a family. There's emotions. We say things. And I wrote that in haste. I wrote that with deep emotions. I wrote that out of love. And about 2 hours later, I retracted it with an apology email, but nobody's seen that. I want to say something about the media. And part of today is to discredit the media and how they operate. When they contact you, I let a few phone calls go, but then they call you and say they threaten you. That's the first thing they do. Right. They say, unless you make a statement, we will publish it as is. And I think that's a despicable way to treat anyone. Threats are dangerous. I don't think the way you operate it feels almost criminal when reporters call you and threaten you. I don't think a lot of people know that's the way they operate. And they don't care who they hurt, families, children.
By the way, you'd be surprised how little that has come up. Now, when they ask, I answer candidly. I don't answer these questions to the hyenas in the hallway trying to chirp at my wife and I as we walk down the hallway. I don't owe them an answer. I owe an answer to the members of the United States Senate who are going to vote for a confirmation here. And my meetings with them have been fantastic. No one has looked me in the eye and say, I have concerns and I can't vote for you. In fact, most have said, let's take a picture and I'm behind you all the way. And that's a reflection of Donald Trump and the strength of his election, but also the mandate to change something at the Defense Department. So the meetings have been great. We're going to continue doing it. We're not backing down one bit.
We're going to get into the specific allegations, but let me start with this. Do you think you're being Kavanaugh'd right now?
I had a member not 45 minutes ago look me in the eye in private, just he and I, and say, that's what they're trying to do to you. That's what they're trying to do to you. That's their playbook. Get ready for more. And they're going to make it up, just like they have so far. All anonymous, all innuendo, all rumor, nothing sourced, no verification, and they're just going to keep doing it because you're a threat to them. You're a threat to their system. You're a threat to all the things in Washington, D.C., the swamp, the things that people have rejected. You're a threat to that. And so they're coming after you. And I know that. He knows that. And when you stand firm on that, it's not difficult to just continue to fight. So, yeah, we saw what happened, but guess what happened? Kavanaugh stood up, and he fought, and he won. And hopefully Republicans have learned that lesson.
And Trump stood by him.
And Trump stood by him. What you're seeing right now with me is the art of the smear. It is the classic art of the smear. Take whatever tiny kernels of truth, and there are tiny, tiny ones in there, and blow them up into a masquerade of a narrative about somebody that I am definitely not. And what they never quote, and we'll get into this too, are the legions of people from who I served with in combat, multiple tours, from the multiple veterans organizations that I very proudly ran, and I really want to get into that, and my time at Fox News. They never asked the people closest to me.
No.
They never asked the people who were involved directly. And when they do, and I've got a list right here of people, and Will Cain and my hosts at Fox News have come out, all the folks on Fox Friends have all come out and said, this is not Pete, and we've worked with Pete for 10 years, every single morning, every single day. They never ask those people.
Yeah.
And that's what a smear looks like. It's a couple anonymous nuggets, usually from disgruntled people who were fired for cause, who are jealous or want a little bit of retribution. And so they peddle stuff to reporters who are not interested in the truth. They're interested in smearing someone who supports Donald Trump's agenda. It's really clear. I'm in the middle of it. But, I'm surrounded by a great team. I got a wonderful wife. We love this country. We love Jesus Christ, our Savior. And we're going to fight like hell. There's no reason to back down. Why would we back down?
That's right.
Do you know how many guys I'm hearing from right now? The guys I serve with, gals that I work with at CVA, don't stop. The guys are like, it's always sir, Don't stop, sir. Please keep going.
They're behind you.
You are fighting for us. Like, you are our voice. We've never had a voice like this before.
They're not upset about your drinking?
You know what? There's an interesting one there. First of all, I've never had a drinking problem. No one's ever approached me and said, oh, you should really look at getting help for a drink. Never. I've never sought counseling, never sought help. I respect and appreciate people who do. But, what do guys do when they come back from war oftentimes? Have some beers. You deal with the demons you see on the battlefield. Sometimes it's with a bottle. Unfortunately, tragically, for too many guys, it's with the bottle, and then it's depression, and even worse, suicide. I mean, we've got an epidemic of that in our country. Thank God, by the grace of God, I found my chapters of purpose that pulled me out of that. I found, in many ways, I found two things, my two J's. My Jenny, my wife Jennifer, changed my life, saved me. There's just no doubt about it. And my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And without those two J's, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. But with those two J's, like my mom said this morning, and I didn't get a chance to see all of it, but God bless my mom, I'm a very different person than I was 10 years ago, than I was 15 years ago. But I'm also the right guy to be in the Pentagon to understand what our young warfighters are going through. What we send them to do, what we ask them to do, tour after tour after tour after tour. Are we equipping them properly? Are they mentally prepared? Are we helping them on the way back? How are they transitioning? Were they used properly? I can speak to that because I've lived it. Not from a general's perspective, not from an air-conditioned office in Washington, D.C., or from a think tank, from dusty boots and pulling triggers with bullets whizzing by, and you're wondering whether you're ever coming home.